Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Tamara. Today we are talking about a new fantasy series, and we'll be sharing that info with you shortly. If you would like to see the video format of this podcast, sans the commercials, you'll need to head on over to Patreon and sign up now. Don't forget, you can also join me and my two co-hosts over on the Book Clubs app for even more book chat. Please subscribe and like the podcast wherever you're listening. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me everywhere at Shelf Addiction. Joining me today is special co-host, my family. Welcome, Samiya.
Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to jump into it. Today we are talking about These Hollow Vows, written by Lexi Ryan. So as usual, I'm going to share the stats, and then Samiya will share the synopsis. So These Hollow Vows was published July 20th, 2021 by Clarion Books and Harper Audio. The Kindle version is 448 pages. The audiobook is 13 hours and 8 minutes and was narrated by Casey Holloway.
Okay, for this synopsis, here we go. Bree hates the Fae and refuses to have anything to do with them, even if that means starving on the street. But when her sister is sold to the sadistic king of the Unseelie court to pay a debt, she'll do whatever it takes to get her back, including making a deal with the king himself to steal 3 magical relics from the Seelie court. Gaining unfettered access to the Seelie court is easier said than done. Bree's only choice is to pose as a potential bride for the Prince Ronin, and she soon finds herself falling for him. Unwilling to let her heart distract her, she accepts help from a band of unseelie misfits with their own secret agenda. As Bree spends time with their mysterious leader, Finn, she struggles to resist his seductive charm. Caught between 2 dangerous courts, Bree must decide who to trust with her loyalty and with her heart.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so first, let me just say, we just came off of reading Red Rising Trilogy by Pierce Brown. So needless to say, if you could not tell from that synopsis, these are like night and day type of stories.
It is.
So let's talk about the adjustment in reading, because you went right from that into this. Now, you know I do this all the time, but how was the adjustment for you?
Oh, it took me some time. It was a dramatic shift for me. I had to remind myself to dial it down, come back, reel it in. It's way more tamed. I think tamed would be a good description for it.
Okay.
But it took a lot of effort for me to readjust to this because, I was into the fights, fight for your life.
Mm-hmm.
But this is more strategize for your life, for your love, for whatever. Yeah.
For the kingdom, for the magic, for your life. Yeah, for your life.
Yes.
So yeah, it was definitely different in reading, style, storytelling style. This was a lot softer. The other was a lot harder.
Way softer.
This, while it did have some things that I would say could be kind of, adult content, it definitely wasn't presented in a way
that inappropriate or
right.
obscene.
Everything was tame, right? It was all dialed back. Things that were bad that happened were off the page.
I feel like it was done with taste, it's so the reader isn't jarred in the experience of the book, because I'm sure some of those events could have been really jarring for people, but I think that I appreciate the lighthearted approach that was taken with this style of writing.
Well, that's the YA approach.
Yeah.
It's definitely YA. But adults can enjoy it, I think.
Well, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
With frustrations.
Okay, so let's say right at the end, when you finished the last page, heard the last word, what'd you think? Like high level.
My initial response was, ugh. Really? Like I did not guess that situation. I did not foresee it. Maybe because I was trying not to and trying to enjoy the read as it went along, let it unfold as the story went along.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm ready to keep going.
So it was definitely a cliffhanger, right?
Yes.
And I like a good cliffhanger, but I also like that this is a duology. So I feel like we're gonna get a lot more action and a lot more suspense amongst the characters in the next book. Because I feel like the ending, we talk spoilers here, y'all. But the ending definitely, I think, is going to change Bree as a person. I think she's not going to be the same person she was in this book.
I feel like it has to change her because coming into this whole scenario, she was so naive about many things, but it was like she portrayed as being so mature and so. I still felt like she was very immature
through the whole book.
Yes, very immature.
Okay, so Bree, so let me just say, I've sensed other books in this book. So let me just start with her immaturity and naivety. Naivete, is that the word I'm looking for?
Naivety.
Yeah. Although she had some rough times, which, by the way, kind of felt Cinderella-like to me.
Cinderella through and through.
Yeah, yes. She got her parents died. She got
evil auntie, whatever.
Yeah, the mother left her with the uncle. Then the uncle dies, and then she's got evil stepsisters, and her and her sister are sleeping in the basement.
All Cinderella. That's through and through. I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
So even though she's had some rough times of it, she's stealing to make money to pay, their fees or whatever. She still was like not very knowledgeable in the world and how people can lie to you. She was very
what you see is what you get. Like what someone tells you about themselves is what it is about them. There's no, hidden agendas in her eyes just yet. But I think towards the end,
there's definitely,
she was jolted out of that.
Yeah, I think, and that's part of her character's journey was she was utterly confused about these two boys. Like, I like one guy. I've liked him for 2 years. She's like Sebastian for 2 years since she met him.
He's the good guy.
Yes.
Oh, Sebastian.
And then there's this other guy, Finn, who is unseelie. He's with he's
Finn.
anti, and
he's a bad boy.
Uh-huh.
Finn's the bad boy. So you have the good guy versus the bad boy.
Yeah, and even though she likes, I don't know what these feelings are inside of me, about Finn. I don't know, why is my power stronger around him?
Well, let's just say
all the things
between Sebastian and Bree and Finn and Bree as well. I said on both of them, don't do it, girl. Sebastian, I said, don't do it, girl. It's gonna be the end of you. Don't do it. Then I said, don't do it. He the devil. Don't do it. He the devil. Just because they met at the ball, it was this swoon, this ooh, and this mystery to him. I was like, don't do it. He the devil. And she did it.
She did. So, okay. Let's talk about the place. Before we dive into the details of her, what she did and didn't do, how did you think the pacing of the book was?
The pacing for me was difficult for me to dial it back because my other reading up to now has been more fast paced, more intense, more action ridden, more, just a little stressful in a way, but this book, it definitely, they were pumping the brakes for me. And I had to remind myself to pump the brakes while reading this. Like, just wait. I wanted to push ahead. Like, girl, what are you going to do with this information? Girl, what are you going to do? And then
it just took too long to get to
it was so slow.
Okay.
But it's okay because in the end, I get why it was, it was things that were said and that happened and needed to happen in order to get where she got. in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So for her, okay, I would say developmentally,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this was a good stride, even though I was agitated a lot with her.
Okay, so for me, I think the pacing was fine. It was fine. The beginning had kind of a slow bit, but I think after the point where she went into the fairyland, that's when the pacing got a little bit better. It was so maybe the first 10% was like a little slow.
For me, it was almost like 40%.
Oh wow. Okay. That's
It
a little...
was slow for me, and I was, come on, girl, come on. Ooh, like I wanted it all in the castle, and they didn't give me all.
Okay, that's fair. But I think like for me, part of the reason why I didn't have too much of a problem with it, and I think to be fair, so this this book is compared to Sarah J. Maas's Court of Thorns and Roses and Holly Black's Cruel Prince. So I have not read Holly Black, but I have read Court of Thorns and Roses, and I can see very clear lines between these two books. So I knew like it's going to take a minute to find its stride, and I kind of knew what the setup was going to be based on that. And it does follow pretty typical romantic YA fantasy tropes, or even new adult tropes and some adult tropes, right? When it comes to...
Yeah, it's a trope.
Yeah, because it wasn't like a traditional love triangle, but there were elements of it, and
that's traditional.
yeah. Yeah, so I guess I was okay with the pacing because I had made that comparison and I could see it was going to live up to that.
Now, I have not read either of those. So I'm not familiar with the Cruel Prince nor the Court of Thorns.
Court of
Thorns and Roses. I'm not familiar. Even though that's on my want to read list, that whole series, I haven't gotten to that yet. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting. I think it might. Now I have read other Fae stories, and it does follow along those "don't trust the Fae" guidelines. Mm-hmm. And they are scrumptious, from what I understand.
Well, this one's it's missing that. So the heat in the Sarah J. Maas book.
This was definitely
Maas. I don't know how people pronounce her name, Maas or Maas.
Definitely toned down.
So there's no like on the page anything, right? So there was one scene where Sebastian was, and it wasn't clear. I was like, I thought he was having sex with that girl, but later it was like he was making out with her. I'm like, what is it?
It was weird.
I'm like, what was he doing? So Bree walks in and he's like on top of this girl. It looks like they're having sex, but then later it seems like maybe they're not.
They were just dry humping.
I don't know. I'm like, what is this? What is this garbage? So
even though he was like 21.
Yeah, he was 21. So I mean, at first I thought this was going to be like new adult, and when I heard Sarah J. Maas, I said, well, this should be some spice, but also in her first book, the spice was like not really there. It was book 2. You're like, oh, you get some stuff. You're like, oh, so maybe in book 2 we'll get some spice.
Well, they'll be older by then.
Not much. I mean, unless there's a time jump, which we don't know.
Maybe like, well, she has to have time to adjust,
Does she though?
No,
I don't know. Where's she gonna go? Not. Okay, so let's think it through. Let's just take a little side detour. If there was a time jump, where would she go for that time?
Not back to the real world, because it sucks there.
People are looking for her still.
I think she would stay in the world of the Fae.
And live where?
Amongst them somewhere. I don't know. Jump back and forth. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, that's why I think she'll probably run to Finn some kind of way for help.
I just feel like that's going to be the way she goes in the beginning. I feel like it's going to be another triangle, and it's going to be more like, we're going to do this again in book 2. Okay. I feel like we're gonna do it again.
Okay, so let's talk. Okay, let's dive into the nuts and bolts of it. So where should we start? I know you had a lot of points that you didn't like and things you want to comment on.
No, we can start. Let's start in the beginning. Let's go from the beginning.
Okay.
I just think that she was supposed to be this young master thief. as she described it, she was a master at her craft. And she ended up leaving behind her trail, so they were looking for her. Eventually figured out it was her. What was that? Over half the book later, when she found out they were looking for her.
Well, they've been looking for her technically since she escaped, because she was in line and they were looking for her.
Because so they did figure out who it was before she went off to the Fae world. But in there, it was weird because I noticed she described herself as the shadow, like she was one of the shadows or something. However she said it, don't quote me, but she described herself as the shadow when it came to moving along and thieving, kind of Robin Hood vibe. Robin Hood, that's the one. Steal from the rich.
Yeah, but she was given to herself, not the poor.
But she is poor. But it kind of wasn't for herself. It was kind of for her and her sister because they were both poor. So
her and herself. It was to pay a debt, really.
Yeah.
It was to pay a debt to get their freedom.
And then, so both of them, it was horrible for me to see how it was. Well, not horrible. It was just disturbing to see how their debt consistently grew and grew and grew over time. It was created, in essence. She was like the bank of the book.
You know what, though? That is
she don't want you out of debt.
That's the thing, though. It's like, that's kind of how it went for, like, not to be all serious and stuff, but that's how, like, indentured servitude was.
That's exactly how
you like, here's how much it costs to pay off, but you'll never make that much. And the longer you stay, the more bills you rack up, so you'll never pay it.
We're going to charge you for everything and do everything. We're going to collect payments for all your stuff, but you got to make all these payments. But I feel like some people were able to get out, but I feel like for her it was impossible. And then, speaking of that situation, she, in essence, sells her sister.
So the aunt, the step aunt, right? That's not her blood.
Not her blood.
She decided that she was tired of waiting on the money, quote unquote, tired of waiting. So, she decides to sell the sister to the unseelie king, who comes, basically looking for her. He meant to buy her on purpose.
He was trying to buy her on purpose. Yeah. It was a reason for that.
And so she does it, and then next thing you know, of course, Bree, like, she wants nothing to do with Fae. She doesn't believe the fairy tale. She doesn't believe the story. She hates them. She has a general just
disdain
about everything Fae. So her sister was in the middle of making her this dress because she promised to go and meet the prince, right? This whole Cinderella, right? You go, you meet with the prince, you dance, and he chooses a bride. It's this whole thing turned bachelorette, or the bachelor, because all these girls go and they stay in the palace for a week,
they line up like
it's a mess. So anyway, she ends up going exactly there, like, not by design, but it just happened to be that's how she needed to get across and hide and all these other things, and she ends up in this court.
I feel like the first interesting portion of her entering the court was her meeting another character. Was that what was her name? I can't think of her name.
I don't know, but she's like a shapeshifter. Like, her ability is to look however she wants to look, and she is a part of Finn's group. And I knew the minute, so she meets this girl in line, also in line for the prince or whatever, and she's there and she helps her. She's in this tore up dress because she was running, and she's like, let me help you. I have some magical pins. This will make your dress look pretty. Let me help you with your hair. So she's helping her get into the palace, right? And then instantly, I'm like, there's some ulterior motive here. And Bree is just like, oh, I made a new friend. Yay. I'm like, girl.
And I said,
she's so slow. She's so slow.
I don't know. Even though she did need the help because she was in her raggedy dress. It wasn't the dress that she planned. She did need help, though. From describing what that thing looked like. It was definitely a thing. A rag. She threw on a rag, basically. A red. Was it red? Red.
I don't know. But whatever she was wearing, she didn't have her gown on. she was like running and she was hiding while she was running. So she had like dirt smudges.
And
she
her
looked
hair
a mess.
was a mess.
And no other girl would want to help her without some ulterior motive because they all want the prince. So why would you help someone look better when that's what you want?
I was kind of side-eyeing that situation because if they're all in line for the same prince.
Yeah, but she took it. She was like, "Why are you helping me?" And she's like, "Well, I
thought
you need
a friend.
Yeah.
Like, what?
So,
no friends here. No friends going into the world of Fang. No friends.
Yeah. So then she promptly meets Finn inside.
She meets Finn first.
And she's drinking the fairy wine.
Now let's talk about this fairy wine, child. What was it? Dessert?
Something.
They were passing the cup of LSD. What? Do they drink that?
I don't know. It seemed like it could have been like
hallucinogens.
Yeah, this chick was dancing with all these fae men and like for hours. Like
hours had passed.
Yeah.
And she's figuring out she likes her hips.
I mean, she's actually saying, "Oh, I'm sure my feet hurt." She's saying things hurt, but she's not ready to stop dancing.
And it's like she can't feel it, but she knows that it's been a long, like she can feel the lapse in time, but her inebriation has kept her from, focusing on that time lapse or whatnot. But eventually, she moves about and she comes out of it, but she was looking for how to find her. That was the whole when she got going in.
She was looking. Well, she knew she needed to find. There was a armoire or a mirror or something.
The armoire.
An armoire that she knew would take her because the story said that the unseelie prince and the seelie queen, or unseelie king and queen, they fell in love and they had a portal between the both of the world.
And it opened,
the groups. And it only opened at midnight. Blah blah blah. So she was looking for that, but in the meantime, she's like just
smitten
right
with Finn. He was delectable.
Was he?
Finn, you're a bad guy, but she's so fine.
I guess. I mean, I'm like, girl, okay. So, and then she learns.
And I'm in the backdrop. Girl, don't do it.
Well, and the whole time, so she's doing all this stuff. She's drunk. She's doing the stuff. And then she like figures out, like she's always known she's had powers that consist of shadows. Again, shadows. And she's dipping in and out of rooms. She's like up against the wall in a shadow, trying to make herself invisible. She's creeping around and Finn is following her.
Finn's just watching like, what are you doing, girl?
Yeah, what are you doing? So let's speed up because we'll be doing plop
all day.
So she jumps through basically. And she ends up in the Seelie court. And then, of course, we find out about her sister. And he's got a deal. The Seelie King has a deal for her.
So that was a strange piece for me. And when she encountered him, it was weird for me. I'm like, why does he want this girl to go and get these things so bad? Like, that's when I was able to take a serious interest in this story because it was dragging me along and it was too much. But at that point in time, when I started to raise questions about the king and what was his, what's your aim here? What's your angle? What is this? That drew me in and I appreciate that. I didn't like her going to steal the mirror because, well, it was funny because Sebastian tells her, don't trust the mirror. He told her that in the beginning here. And she goes and she gets the mirror. She finds the mirror. She swaps it out for a fake so that Sebastian doesn't know she still has it. She begins to use this mirror. And I think that with her using this mirror, I feel like the mirror should have showed her some ugly, like show her something real. But it was like a
think of it mirror. This way. I feel like it shows you what you want to see.
It was broken.
Well, he didn't say it was broken. He said it was kind of like altered, right? Like not necessarily broken per se, but it's on purpose. The mirror is showing you. Its intent was to show what's real, but it ends up showing you what are things you want to see. So if you, for example, in here, she's like, show me my mother. And of course, she gets a flash of one thing, but then she sees her mother standing in a cemetery. So she's like, let me run. Show me my sister. And her sister's talking to maids and brushing her hair and having a great time. And it's like, that's not what it is at all.
That's not what it is. And then I just feel like even in that experience, I feel like she should have had a grain of salt in there. Like, what is, like, how is this working like this? What's in here? You know, kind of.
And after that, they did tell her, don't trust the mirror. After they figured out she was using it, they said, don't trust the mirror. And she still said, well, maybe I can just use it anyway.
I can see something kind of thing. And I don't think that was a good idea. She is very hard-headed. She was hard-headed all the way through this book. You say one, but I will say that so much was withheld from her in this book that I can kind of see where the hard head came in.
But you know what, though? Speaking of secrets and not, things that she couldn't tell, the author did a really good job with explaining why it was so difficult to find out what the real deal was between the two factions. Because of a spell. A spell was on everyone. You literally could not speak. They could not speak the words when it came to this specific topic. Like the war between the Seelie and the Unseelie and how it was resolved. No one could say what happened. Yeah.
Because they were all just like
literally, like their throat goes up. They cannot speak it. So that was pretty clever. And
that was very
to be fair to Bree, she was pretty clever in using the goblin to kind of figure out what was what. And also some of her deductive reasoning for the rest.
You know what that relationship with her and the goblin, you know what kind of vibe it gave me?
I know.
All I could hear was Goblin King! Oh, Goblin King!
You got Goblin King. I got Rumpelstiltskin because the girl's like, oh, I got to throw on this hay, and then Rumpelstiltskin shows up and does it. So the goblin was in that same vein. He would show up and give her information, but he could not get her out of, peril, danger. Like if you're about to die, I can't help you. But I can give you information in exchange for your hair. So at the beginning of this book, she had this long, luxurious hair. And at the end, she got this, basically almost 2 seconds from a buzz cut because she's been chopping off her hair to keep up with the goblin. Like, come on. Like, here, take some of this,
Here.
Yeah, throughout the whole book, she's chopping off her hair. Just slicing it. Because at one point, she was doing cuts. And then at one point, she didn't have scissors anymore. So she was just taking a knife, slicing it out. She looked a mess at the end of the book.
She had a whole bad
her hair was looking bad at the end, but
Bash was still loving that bad hair. He was
okay. So, oh my gosh,
I love the bad hair. He loved the bad hair.
So that is my question. Do you really think Bash actually loves her? Actually really likes her?
I think that Bash definitely has a soft spot for her, but I think his position gives him kind of a difficult. It's kind of like a Jimmy Ranch in their story per se, because he knew in the beginning that she really disliked.
He lied to her from day one,
so he didn't tell her that he had anything to do with them or that he was. But
he sought her out maliciously, right?
He did. He had
didn't
a whole
stumble
plan.
Across her.
It was I think he found some of her little quirks, because he mentioned at one point how when she read books, it was like she could disappear and just dive all in, and he kind of had an admiration, description to that scenario, whatever. And I was like, Also, he did find something real in there, but I think those were things that he had to find because he was on a mission. But on this mission, it's something nice about her.
So you think?
I think he stumbled on things that he really.
So you think he did really like her, even though he started out with ulterior motives?
Yeah, I just think them being in such close proximity all the time kind of gave him those little inklings. Like he was picking up the crumbs as she was walking away or something. Kind of, maybe I like this crumb.
I think he likes her. I think he thinks he likes her. I'll say it that way. I think he thinks he likes her. And that is why he's willing to protect her. He does want her around because he could have just let her die instead of giving her the drink to keep her alive, right? And turn her fae. But he knew she explicitly did not want to become fae, and he gave her the drink anyway.
But that's like perfect, because that puts him, well, you can't hate yourself, can you?
Yeah, you can. Well, you shouldn't, but you can. He thinks that, I don't know if he thinks that that's going to change her mind on fae. If anything, he's just wrecked it even more.
Yeah, I feel like that was maybe an angle. Maybe. I don't.
Well, I don't know. I think, Sebastian, he had the big con. He had the longest con.
The longest running. And usually, but you know what they say. They say the people that play that long game.
Honestly, he played her like a fiddle. So he gave her a necklace when he left. He left to go home, and he gave her a necklace. That necklace was a tracker. He knew she would come for her sister. So he was waiting on her to come. But when he saw her, he was acting all surprised. So again, he was playing this boy. Oh, I'm so sorry I lied to you. I want to give you space to think. He was playing her like a fiddle the whole time from day one. So even if he does have some real feelings for her, they're all under the guise of manipulation and control. And the minute he loses that, I don't know if he's going to like her.
They were definitely spawned out of manipulation and control, but I can't see it going anywhere healthy.
See, this is what comes back to Sarah J. Maas. So in those books, spoiler alert, again, I'm not going to give details, but high level, the heroine thinks she's in love with someone, and then we find out that he's not as good as he looks. Same type of thing.
That's exactly what happened here.
And the villain, who you think is the villain, is not as villainous as we all think. He is maybe better than the first guy. Yeah. And I think that is kind of happening here too. Like there's a lot of gray.
Yeah, it's a lot of gray between these two. It's weird. It's weird. So that's kind of why I feel like I can keep reading. Yeah, I can go a little further because I want to know now. Got all this Shady McShade running around on these pages.
I mean, honestly, between spending so much time with Finn and his little gang of wild fae and outcasts and one Seelie fae that turned against them. His little band of outcasts, she's even going to the point where she is like risking to expose herself to save one of them.
I can't get with that. Like, I disagreed with that. That was too much. It was like, girl, these people are not that loyal to you. You need to take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. You can't be worrying about everybody around you just because they seem to be a good friend or they seem to be an ally. Like, they weren't even friends. They were just allies at that point in time, kind of working together towards a goal. But just because y'all allies don't mean y'all buddies.
No, I know, but she did that, and I think that she thought they were friends. They were, and even Finn said to her, well, before today, she's like, you would have did that for me, and he's like, before today we probably wouldn't have. But like now, we see that you're in this and you're going to help us, so we'll help you. And he did save her. He did save her when she was in the woods. He sent his wolves to distract the monster so she could try to get away. So they're not bad people, right? But she went above and beyond. She is always doing the most. Yeah.
The most.
Absolutely.
The most.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this is a good point to take a break. You guys check out these commercials. By listening to those, you are supporting the podcast. And if you don't want the commercials, remember to come on over to Patreon And you can see and or listen without commercials and get all of the outtakes that are included in the final cut for the podcast feed. While you're at it, feel free to hop on over to Amazon and check out the book review journal, available now. Stay with us. Today's episode is brought to you by the Shelf Addiction merch store. Check out all the bookish t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, and more. Don't miss out on these original designs, perfect for any book nerd. Support the podcast and visit shelfaddiction.com/merch and pick up your next favorite bookish item. All right, welcome back, guys. We are going to continue our discussion of the book and the characters and all the things. What did you have some more points, specific points that you wanted to rage about or compliment?
I don't know. They were so disappointing at so many different times for me. I just feel like, I will rave about. I feel like we are seeing some serious character development on Bree's behalf during this whole, as it progresses along. I feel like she is developing along with the story, and with the biggest jolt, like, I feel like that's going to push her into some form of decency instead of immature, like, self-absorbed, just, that me, and then, oh yeah, my sister, me, oh yeah.
Well, let's see. Let's jump to the end. So the end of the book. Wow. Okay, so the end of the book, I'm like, wow, I'm looking at the words here. But at the end of the book, Bree is turned into Fae. She's turned into Fae. She didn't want to. She has given her crown to Sebastian. So the crown is on her head. It is a magical crown, not a physical crown. So that is one of the 3 items that was supposed to be brought back to the Sea King, is this crown. And she knows whoever she bonds with will take the crown from her. And it is said in this story, if you bond with an unseelie prince, which is a part of the curse, you will die. If you bond with a seelie, you're okay. But if you bond with an unseelie, you will die. So, like we said earlier, she bonds with him, he gets the crown, and she proceeds to die. And he forces the formula or serum or whatever on her, so she will live as a Fae. She wakes up. Well, while she's sleeping, she has this interaction with Finn, which we find out is another one of her powers. She thinks that Finn is coming into her dreams, but she is going into his. And she's been doing this with her sister and everybody else, but she didn't know it. So
which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I was shocked because I was convinced when she first started having those experiences that it was Finn. I thought it was his capability. But figuring that, or coming to that one, it was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, she's very powerful. But she awakens and she realizes what has happened, and she starts to put the clues together. She's like, wait a minute, he was ready with that serum. What about this and what about that?
How did he know?
Yes. And then it comes out because her maids, her sweet maids, they're like,
sweet maids that don't know nothing.
They're like, oh, we've got to prepare you for coronation and blah, blah. She's like, what? Did the queen die? They're like, no. And they, again, could not talk about this until
they just beat around that bush.
Right. They couldn't talk about it until the spell was broken, right? So now they're like, no, he is half Seelie.
It's a whole lot of bush beating until now.
Yeah, so we find out that Sebastian is half Seelie. So his father, his mother's husband, were they ever married or were they just lovers when they were together?
I feel like they were lovers.
Yeah.
They didn't give the marriage vibes. I don't recall them mentioning that specifically, but I just got committed vibes for them.
Okay,
like they were a couple, you know?
Yeah, because they would, okay, so his father and his mother, you know, opposite sides, right? They were jotting around between the worlds, doing all the stuff, having all the fun, and then stuff happened.
Living it up.
Yeah, and he got stuck in the real world, and that is when he met Bree's mother. So, and when Bree almost dies, he decides, I'm going to give to bring her back to life, I'm going to give her my crown and I'm going to give her these powers.
So she always had them.
Yeah. So that also means that Sebastian and Finn are half brothers.
Exactly.
They're half brothers. Okay, I didn't even think of that till now.
It is. Well, while reading, I thought it was gonna be like, oh, Bree and Finn are brother and sister. Like, I just knew that one was gonna come like, ew, she been trying to kiss on her brother.
I said wrong author. This is the wrong author for the incest vibes. But anyway, so all of that. So she realizes that he is unseelie and she just died, right? She just basically died again. And that was what was foretold by the one little girl that has all the visions. She said, so the woman we were talking about, we can't remember. Priya? Priya? I don't know. Start with a P. I think it's right. So her daughter that starts with the L, Lucy, Lily, Lula, I don't know, something. Anyway, so she is
the daughter with the L.
She can foresee the future, and she told her there are 3 paths. And all of them you die.
All of them
you die.
I thought that was so strange.
But she's like,
traumatic is that to hear from some kid?
Well, she said you'll never be the Steely Queen. She said you'll never be the Steely Queen. But she said you could be a different kind of queen for the Unseelie court.
Right.
Which she's not right now. She's bonded to the Unseelie King.
I feel like that's going to happen in the next book.
Yeah, she's bonded to him, but we don't know if she'll actually...
I feel like that prophecy is going to play out.
Maybe. I don't know.
It kind of has to, because the other portions of that little prophecy was true.
Yeah, she could be the queen without a king.
I'm just saying.
I mean, I agree, but
Who did that? Queen Elizabeth?
She
is
could
that
kill
the one
him.
that did that?
I think she'll kill him.
Yeah.
I think she'll kill Sebastian.
Take her crown back.
I think she'll kill him, like she killed the imposter, the Unseelie King. But
yeah.
Anyway, at the end of this book, she is outraged. She's like, woman scorned. She can tell he's coming because of the bond, and she just puts the whole place in shadow.
Darkness, honey.
No, and she's like, he runs in and he's like, stop this, Bree. Lift the darkness. We need to talk.
She like, no, B.
And she like juices. She literally just walks out of the Golden Palace with nothing but, quote, my darkness and the betrayal that has wrapped itself around my immortal heart, end quote.
Beautiful.
She is outraged and ready for revenge.
She is ready, and I feel like she's gonna come back with a vengeance. However that happens, she is gonna rain down. For real.
She's gonna rain hell on him. He's gonna be sorry he did that.
He'll be shaking in his underoos somewhere.
Now, so the question is she gonna be so gullible to believe more stories by him? Because I'm sure they're gonna have some more. I feel like
she's gonna have to find a whole nother. She's gonna have to get her historical content from someone else somewhere.
Yeah, because we know he lies. He's lied since day one.
Very beginning. From the very beginning, and she knew that, and that's been kind of weighing on her the whole time. She's like, oh, but he didn't tell me about him. I'm like, yeah, girl, red flag. But
the thing is, though, she was so adamantly upset with Finn for not telling her, but he couldn't really tell her.
But he was tongue-tied.
But that's the thing. She almost died, and he saved her. He could have just let her die and taken the crown, but he didn't. He saved her.
Well, he can't because he kind of wanted her too.
I know, but that's the thing. Bree was not even considering the fact that he could have let her die.
Yeah.
She didn't even think about it. She was just outraged.
But she knew he wouldn't let her die, though.
Well, did she? Did she?
I feel like it was a vibe check for her.
I don't know.
Like, she knew he wouldn't just let her die.
Whatever it is, she really gave him the short end of the stick. I feel like she gave Sebastian way more passes. And yes, she's known him longer.
But Sebastian was the fave from the beginning, from day one, though.
That's never the right guy. The fave from day one is never.
She loved her some Bash before they even got
it don't matter.
In there.
In these stories, with these plots, it's never the first guy.
True.
It's never.
It's never the first guy in real life either.
No, it's never. I mean, I'm sure there are 1 in a million exceptions, but it's usually never the first guy.
1.5 in a million.
Yeah.
They get divorced.
Right. So whatever they're linking is, I think they're going to be unlinked in some kind of way.
That would be interesting.
Either she's going to find a way to unbound herself, because, they have said in this book that it's terribly complicated once you have.
But it can be done. I feel like if you want it bad enough, you're going to go for it. Like, she wanted to get her sister back so bad.
Well, they didn't talk about any kind of ways in this book to undo it. But they did say how complicated things got once it was done. So they didn't say it was never something that could be undone or broken, but they didn't address it really in this book, which leaves the author room to kind of develop.
Well, you got to have wiggle room.
Yeah, what she wants it to be in the next book.
And I do appreciate that, because it does. It gives room. It gives room for more detail, more in-depth storyline, more juice, more dirt. Maybe it'll get a little grimier.
So I just want to know, like, if I had to guess, so these are my guesses of what will happen. So either Bree is going to break the bond with Sebastian, and somehow he will be dethroned and he'll just be destitute, or he'll be sent back to the Sealy court, right? Or she is going to cut him out cut his heart out and feed it to him. She's going to kill him.
I'm with that one.
I wouldn't mind her killing him, taking the throne back. And then somehow maybe she'll be with Finn. I'm not sure. I feel like there's going to be a romantic ending some way.
I feel like she's going to have Finn's baby, little Faye baby.
Oh my gosh, that might.
And then I feel like she's going to kill Bash, and she's going to take her crown back.
Yeah.
Like, just just like the fake king, just like
she
him.
She stabbed his ass. She was like, yeah. Then she got stabbed back, but it was fine.
It's okay. She survived. If she survived,
yeah,
it's all good. But that's what I think is going to happen with them. It'd be messed up if none of that happened.
I know, but you know what? I feel like this story, and this could be my own bad for assuming that I think I know how this story is going to turn out because of the correlations to the other book, the other series. Well, I'm making some assumptions based on that.
I don't have those assumptions. This is just from what I see right here and right now. And I think it's going to be easier for Bree to kill Sebastian because he lies so much. And he turned her. I think that that would be a good reason for her to just go all the way through with it.
But I gotta think that Bash isn't a complete idiot. He's got to know that having her in his proximity is going to be dangerous because she's upset.
I mean, he's with the long game.
Unless he thinks he can control her.
He's with the long game, so you never know with him. He plays long, honey.
You never know.
Long.
Audiobook narrator. What did you think of the audiobook narrator?
I think her imitation of the men's voices was the worst.
Really? I couldn't tell because I was listening so fast.
And then her, oh my goodness, like when she would do like the women's voices, they were always like screechy, like, eh. And then Bree was the only normal sounding girl. And then the guys were like this voice here. Bree.
Oh my God. Okay, so to be fair, I was listening on like 2x, so I did not hear that, but I guess you hear more when you're listening slower.
Don't rub it in. I was very slow. Listen, I had to break this down, honey. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I had to slow it down.
Okay.
Pump the brakes. That's what we do. We pump the brakes.
Okay, that's fair.
Don't speed shame me.
Look, I'm trying not to. Okay. So I like the narrator at 2x speed. I cannot speak for lower speed.
It was hilarious. It was just entertaining. And then when the guys would come on, she was like, she goes low. it was funny to me. Like, I feel like I've heard other narrators that had decent like men voices, but it was a woman.
Okay.
But then I've heard the male narrators that had like horrible. They didn't even do a woman's depiction. Like, they didn't like lift their voice or anything. So I think she did a good job going between the voices. Like, Finn was a little more well refined, more so than like Sebastian in the beginning. But they both had the horrible deep voice impersonation.
Oh my goodness. Okay, got it.
A for effort.
Okay. Fair. I think she was good. Okay, so I think that's it. Let's go ahead and rate the book. 1 to 5, no halves. We go Goodreads style. So
I would give it 3 stars because there's no half. It did end up interesting in the end, but it just took me so long to get there. I probably, if I wasn't gonna, discuss it with you here today with you guys, I probably wouldn't have finished it. I probably would have just put it down and walked away. It was not that grabbing until well over halfway through for me.
Okay.
It was a few, but it was so hard to get to.
Okay, that's fair. So for me, I would rate it. Okay, that's good. Okay, so for me, I would rate it 3 stars as well. For different reasons, it wasn't as low to me. I thought it was kind of nice to have something different and lighter, but it wasn't as gripping as I wanted. I felt like it was other things that I had read from, I pulled from Rumpelstiltskin, I pulled from Cinderella, I pulled from Court of Thorns and Roses. I felt like I was reading new iterations of other things. So it wasn't very original to me. So you lose points just off of GP for that.
You lose points.
Yeah, and I mean, it was fine. But I'm definitely excited to see what's next. I want to see what the author has for us in the conclusion, because now once we're in the world, we're in it. She has some real opportunity to like throw some wild things at us.
Really, yeah. She can either tear it down and go bigger, better, go hard or go home, or she can cower out and just. I don't think she's gonna cower out.
Yeah, she'll be okay.
I think she'll go Rage Queen first. Rage Queen.
Yeah, so we'll see what she does. So we are looking forward to it. Hope you guys come back and hear our discussion on book 2, These Twisted Bonds. So we'll be right back here in your inbox next month to discuss that. And I think we're done. What do you think, Smiles?
I think that's great.
All right. So we're going to call it there, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves. Bye, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review, or like this episode on your favorite podcast player. It seems so simple, but it really helps me out. You can share this podcast with other book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. You can also join the Shelf Addiction Patreon family. For as little as $2 a month, you will help us produce even more awesome content for your ears. You can also consider joining the Shelf Addiction official Facebook group, where we talk all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven network. You can also reach us via email at info@shelfaddiction.com. Thank you for listening.